Are we live?
We are live.
We are live. Let's do this thing. We're going to talk nutrition today. We're going to talk just some habits,
Right.
Some just natural, organic habits that we have, some rules that we've incorporated. This is the nutrition tool belt, all right? This isn't a cookie cutter plan where you get to show up and, we lay out for you exactly what to do, and then you go home and follow those instructions, just regardless of whether those fit into your life or not, right? This is about practicality.
Yep.
Nutrition is about practicality. Morgan, I know that over the years, at one point were, I would say, unhealthy people, probably because we didn't have the knowledge, right? I used to think like back in the day, like Gatorade was healthy. I used to think like Diet Coke was okay because it was diet. Well,
we
a
just
lot's
didn't
changed.
know.
Yeah, we didn't know. We didn't know. But now we do.
We ate fast food like every day for lunch in
Oh,
high
yeah.
school.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was like, once you became a junior, you could go out and have an open lunch, and it was like, it was McDonald's, Taco Bell, Schlotzsky's, all the things. And I think then college, like I know you got a lot more interested in nutrition, like, with athletics and stuff.
Did.
But
Because they told me I was too skinny and I needed to gain weight. And I was like, how to do that? They're like, eat good.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
But then for me in college,
Double cheeseburgers with ketchup only? That's not eating good?
I was on a budget. So it was ramen noodles and, pizza rolls and So needless to say, you and I have come a long way in how we approach nutrition, how we've educated ourselves on nutrition. I mean, I think our philosophy's changed a little bit, even in just the last 10 years. That we've talked about this, like when we had kids. I think our philosophy changed a little bit in regards to the reality and practicality of being on a strict regimen or a strict diet, and how that plays into just life.
Yeah, it's evolved for sure.
Yeah.
We talked about evolution on the third episode, I believe, and how we've evolved. I think that this is just a derivation of that conversation, and let's go deep on what that evolution has looked like. And the cool thing about this is no matter where you're at with your nutrition right now, you can make a change right now with one decision.
Yeah.
Right. Just a decision to, create a habit, start, acting out that habit and allow and give yourself space for that habit to turn into a ritual. And then you master those rituals when you've then taught other people how to do it. And I think we are at the position right now where I think we live a pretty well balanced nutrition life. And notice we're not using the word diet ever, because diet means, here's what diet means in Webster's dictionary: a habitual consumption of food by a living organism. Habitual meaning it is really hard to break that. Habit means it's really, really hard. It's something that you do routinely, naturally. So the actual definition of the word diet is, and by its very nature means that you have a very hard time breaking the patterns that you've developed, and you do that to fuel yourself. So how come every 90 days there's like a new diet? There's been 192 mainstream diets since like we can record. 100 like mainstream diets from like Atkins to Mediterranean to.
I think I have my reason why.
Why do you think
people
that is?
are always
Tell
out
me.
there looking to promote the next best thing is because people get excited about something that they think will be a quick fix, right? They think that, okay, well, it worked for this person, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And people are really good at marketing. They're really good at telling a story about how the diet can help you. And it's an easy button for people to think that they can just follow the plan and get the results. And sometimes they will get the results, but then guess what happens?
Yeah.
Right? We all know that you lose the weight in 90 days, like the diet book that you bought said, or the program that you go on. But then after that 90 days, it's like, what has it taught you?
There's no lasting
now,
change.
how
right?
are you keeping it up? Was it sustainable? Was it something that is now just a new habit for you? Those are the diets that work. If it's something like I remember when I did paleo. Paleo is not necessarily like a stop and start diet per se. It's just a way to eat. And I know that I'm not paleo anymore, but it taught me a lot about how grains make my body feel. And so I believe in that type of diet out there, or that type of like diet book, right? It's teaching you along the way, and it's getting you to test different things out that work for your body or that don't work for your body. I believe that people should connect food with how they feel. So if you're eating something constantly and you're getting this feeling after you eating it, you need to take a step back and say, maybe this is doing something inside of my body that it shouldn't be doing, and it's yielding this result of me feeling bloated or tired or having skin issues or, X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
So I like when people educate. And that's where I think you and I have evolved our philosophy with Burn Even is how can we educate? We don't want to just give a cookie cutter diet out there. We don't want to just say, eat this, eat this, eat this. We want to create these small habits in you. But along the way, we want to educate you on whether you leave Burn or not, you still have some empowerment and some education in your tool belt to say, okay, I know how to eat to fuel my body.
For sure. And that tool belt that you mentioned, paleo is just one of the tools.
Yeah.
Keto is one of the tools.
Yeah.
The Atkins diet, one of the tools.
Intermittent fasting,
one of the tools. We're never going to get caught up at Burn Boot Camp in this like religious war of diets. And because like you mentioned, there's an attachment and something to sell on the back end of that argument that a lot of the diet culture nowadays are people from I'm just going to use arbitrary examples, but people from the paleo camp going after the people from the carnivore camp and saying, that's not the way you should be consuming meat. Or the people from the vegan camp saying, you're wrong and I'm right. Right. And then here's all the reasons why. And the reality is all of those things, every diet, every strategy, every modern day, a contemporary way to eat or nutrition habit is only a means to restrict or rather a better word is regulate calories. It's just to regulate calories. And yes, I believe that there's science that's associated with each independent style, if you will. But here's what I also believe, that is largely overstated and blown up in like one small little nuance, like the protein absorption window, okay? There is such thing as a protein absorption window. It is better for you incrementally, marginally, to get your protein within 30 minutes of any hypertrophic workout period if you want to maximize protein synthesis. That's basically a fancy way of saying get your protein in after your workout because your protein is the building blocks of your muscles. The quicker you get them into your body, the faster you're going to repair your muscles and you're more susceptible within a 30-minute window. Is that true? Yes, it is true, but it's incrementally true. And it's largely, and we even say that at Burn, but it's just an example of how you could overstate that. And people will say, if you do not get your protein within 30-minute window, then you shouldn't even get it in at all, which is false. Right? Like, because maybe they sell a 30-minute post-workout window program and they need you to buy into their philosophy in order for them to make a living. And maybe they really do believe that. And I'm not trying to say, good or bad. I'm just trying to relay, and you're trying to relay what we've done, what we've seen work, and from our experience and our examples, what type of philosophy that you have. So Morgan, let's layer it like this, okay? I'll give a philosophy and then we can talk about some strategies and then we can talk about some tactics that are all a part of that tool belt. My first one is never make a change that you don't plan on keeping or intend on keeping forever. And why do I say that? Because just like you mentioned, as soon as you start counting 90 days, like you're going on the 90-day fat shred program, all you're doing is counting the days into which you begin starting over. Or till you stop doing that diet, in which you revert and you rebound. And then you have this extra layer of an emotional stressor on you that's like, okay, and like this is the narrative for a lot of people in their head. They're like, okay, self, you did that for 8 weeks. Now don't be a fat pig for the next 8 weeks. Now you don't be a fat pig for the next 8 weeks. Now make sure you control yourself. And there's this inner narrative that's a demeaning narrative because you're trying to force yourself to create a ritual that you didn't intend on creating in the first place. And your actions and your words aren't congruent, your behaviors aren't in alignment with what you're saying, you're not going to feel whole. So never make a change if you don't intend on keeping it forever. I think that's a good philosophy. What do you think?
I do for the most part. I think that
tell me where you go.
The one way I could like maybe debunk that if I'm hearing you right is let's say I eliminate alcohol for a month. Maybe I don't intend to eliminate alcohol for the rest of my life, but I do want to do it for that period of time. And then I realize after 30 days, wow, I don't need to drink as much. Like I feel so much better about myself, but I still incorporate some alcohol here and there. Would that be an example of debunking that theory? Or would you say don't remove alcohol for 30 days because you're going to keep doing it?
No, I would say that the strategy or the intended change would be, I'm going to remove alcohol for 30 days to prove to myself that I don't need it every day. And then from there on out, I'm going to drink socially.
Gotcha.
Right? That is just the intention that you're putting forward and allowing people to think through it. So yes, you are correct verbatim. and I would agree with you verbatim, but there would be like a deeper sense. You'd have to, you have to go deeper with your, I think one problem people have with nutrition especially is they think way too short of time frames, right? Like doing good for 3 days in a row. Some members would come up to me and like, DK, I did good for 3 days in a row. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Celebrate that, but then you got to do more than that.
I'm not going to celebrate 3 days because then I'm going to give them false confidence. I'll celebrate 2 weeks. If you go 2 weeks and it's your first time, I'm like, all right, you did 2 weeks and imagine what you can do. Because they had done 3 days in a row many times before, and it's been up and down and up and down. And I don't want to reinforce bad patterns. So I'm going to just take my window out a little bit. And I might say at that 3 day mark, like, hey, you have some good momentum going here.
Yeah.
Like, let's go for 10 more days and let's talk about where the momentum's at then. And, you see this too with like results, right? People and think that they can get a lot more results in a lot less time than is probably true.
Yeah. Like lose an large amount of weight in like 60 days. And they're like, wait a minute.
Right. Because you saw it in like The Biggest Loser or something, where you lost 120 pounds in 90 days. And it's like,
yeah,
that's kind of what we're getting
You
at
want sustainability, right?
Sustainability.
That's the underlying theme, right? We want sustainability both with your nutrition and with even your physical habits of working out at the gym, right? We're gonna get you there gradually, one small win at a time.
So let's stay on habits and rituals for a moment, and let's talk about some of the habits and rituals maybe that we've incorporated in our lives. We pitch and catch on that, and anything that you've seen out there or heard out there that you agree with and that you want to point people in the direction of pursuing or disagree with and want to make sure that they're staying away from. Do you want to start or do you want me to go?
I think one habit that helps me a lot is to plan.
Okay.
Now, I'm not somebody who sits there on a Sunday and gets every meal in a container. I did do that at one point when I had a little bit more time on my hands, but now I plan out what my dinners are going to be. I get Home Chef, which I have been doing that since the pandemic. So I know exactly when those meals are coming and I know what we're going to eat as a family. So I have the food in our pantry and in our refrigerator. So I do think planning is a big deal. I plan all of my breakfast and I take that into work. And then usually lunch and dinner are, again, something that I cooked for. So that's a big ritual that I think helps people. If you're someone that's busy, you've got multiple kids, you have a job, whatever the case may be, if you don't plan, then we all know what's going to happen. You let yourself get so hungry that you're driving down the road and you're like, I'm so hungry right now. I don't care what I eat. I just need to eat. And where do you tend to go? Fast food, right? Or you tend to go into the grocery store and maybe buy something that's incredibly overpriced and not healthy for you. So we all know what happens when you don't plan. And so that is definitely a ritual that I have incorporated over the last 10 years and is one that I think is very important to keep me and our family healthy. Yeah,
and you do a fantastic job of that for our family. And you don't necessarily mean, we're going to talk about meal planning in a second, but you don't necessarily mean meal planning, like meal prepping as the traditional sense in what, you might see bodybuilders doing. What you really mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just the actual anticipation of the road ahead, right? You're like anticipating your next 2 weeks when you're going to have, and to do that, then you need to have discipline in your schedule. You need to know what's coming. And we talk about anchoring your workout and anchoring your nutrition, in that schedule. So like, do you recommend people that are just getting started? You've been doing this for 10 years now. What about somebody that's like struggling and they haven't necessarily dialed in the time needed to do these things? Do you recommend them carving out time on their schedule? How does somebody get some momentum in terms of planning ahead?
Yeah, then I actually do recommend sitting down maybe on a Sunday and planning out what are your meals going to be? What ingredients do I need to get? Let me go to the grocery store. What can I prep today? And then what am I going to prep on a Tuesday or a Wednesday so the food is a little bit fresher? Yes, I actually do think you need to go through those motions because you're not going to learn what works for you and what routines work for you unless you've actually sat down and dedicated the time. I think I'm to the point now where, I can wake up a little bit earlier and cook a couple, pounds of ground beef if I didn't do it on a Sunday, right?
Right.
But that's because it's important to me. But I've created those disciplines long ago. I mean, you know me, I was in the kitchen on Sundays like, and I loved it. But
Right.
then with 3 kids and a busier schedule and traveling, you got to find it in little other pockets. But I think that's harder to do if you haven't built the discipline yet.
Yeah, you have to, right? You have to get the knowledge. And the only way to get the knowledge is the actual experience of doing it. But I want to steer. So I'm going to talk for just a minute on modern day meal prepping. And I think this is what you're saying in a sense. So the contrast from the old way that we used to do it to now that we have 3 children and 300 plus locations and all that good stuff that's going on in our lives, like how that takes that discretionary time away and that how you can still get to your outcomes. Let's talk practical, right? Like we'll talk back then and then now, okay? So back then, no kids, 24, 25, 26, busy people, but also like we had some discretionary time. It was nothing for us to, go to the grocery store on a Sunday morning, take our time, get all the ingredients,
Cook it,
get back home, cook it all at once. That took 2.5 hours, lay out 37 different canisters, Tupperware.
Yeah. I would
weigh the food and put it all in. Like that was what we thought we used to needed to do to be healthy. And there's an upside and a downside to that. The upside, like you mentioned, is we learned what 42 grams of protein looked like visually in a chicken breast and in, egg whites and, what a cup of rice looked like visually because we saw it so many times, right? The downside to that is A, we'd throw a lot of food away, and B, it's not practical when you're busy. Yeah. So fast forward to today, what we basically do, what you mentioned, is you said you just brown meat 3 times a week probably. Yeah. And recently I'm a big into elk. It's the superfood animal. I just think they're I heard Joe Rogan one time say that, he's like, have you ever seen an elk run? He goes, they're a super athlete. He's like, why wouldn't you eat a super athlete? I was like, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And he's like, have you ever seen an elk next to a deer or or an elk next to a cow? He's like, why wouldn't you eat that? I was like, good point, Joe Rogan. So now it's like grass-fed beef for me.
Yeah.
We do organic chicken and elk and eggs. And that's like my rotation of protein. And I'll cook all of those things in advance. You will too, not necessarily me always. I do it sometimes. Yeah. You probably do it the majority of the time. And then we'll just have things ready to go. So like instead of I like rice, white rice, brown rice, jasmine rice, maybe the clean nutrition religious people will come down on me for this, but I'm using the 1-minute rice cups.
Yeah.
Like you got a little extra little something in there. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I don't have 20 minutes to boil rice every time I want rice.
And we use the microwave.
And I use the microwave.
Which I know is also taboo for some people.
Well, because they say the BPA in the plastic, I'm not sure of the science or the argument, but here's why I think it's ridiculous. Because then you're going to see those same people in the Burger King drive-thru 3 hours later, and it's like, come on, we need to.
You just got to do what works for you.
Preaching practicality, right? Like we can't
Yeah, we don't have a stove burner here at the office.
We can't condemn each other for using the microwave when there's 30 other bad habits that those same people that are saying don't do that have in their lifestyle. So I think it's important. So now more 3 or 4 times a week, you're making the protein.
Yeah. And then I make my meals too, my home chef meals.
Yeah, that's important too. And then we also have places nowadays, like restaurants are popping up like crazy. There's Clean Eats right across the street from us that has decently priced meals. Whole Foods has not decently priced meals.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
What do you do at the airport? People travel. That's a big thing.
I told you this, I think, in a podcast.
We did?
You can't my egg bites. You're like, Morgan, egg white. They're not healthy.
Well, that's going back to the practicality.
Yeah.
I'll take that for sure.
I mean, yeah, the options at words are not coming to my brain. The options in airports are sometimes not the best. So I always find my Starbucks go-to is some egg bites. But I also bring a lot in my backpack, like beef jerky and stuff like that.
I think we do egg bites on the road a lot. We do jerky. I do pistachios.
We take our afterburn bars.
You can hear that crispiness right there.
Yeah.
These. We got single serve. We got single serve versions of the
protein
powder, and we have 2 powders. The other powder is the plant-based complex. So these definitely help. We take the single serves on the road. Listen, okay, Morg, you felt the feeling of when you're working out really hard, you're putting yourself through demanding workouts and you're getting above 100 grams of protein versus not getting above 100 grams of protein. Mm-hmm. Do you have a narrative like how you feel when you're above and below that threshold?
I haven't been below it in a very long time, I'll be honest. So the feeling can't come to me of not eating enough protein. That is actually one other habit. I know we were talking about habits. That's a big one that I make sure I get at least 100 grams of protein. And I know intuitively now what that means because I have actually done that work of counting my macros in the past. So protein's a big one for me. I feel better on it. I feel more energized and I'm fuller, right? So I'm not always feeling like I need to eat when I get enough protein in.
So we talk a lot about small wins in our nutrition philosophy, right? And how do we teach people to have I wouldn't say a relationship with food. I'm not sure about that phrase yet because I think it's more of a relationship with yourself, right? Because if you have a solid relationship with yourself and your self-esteem and your attitude, in the inner world we talk about, your attitude, your beliefs, your efforts, they're all lined up, then you don't necessarily view food as something that you battle with because you use it as a means to give you energy to get to the greater thing. I'm still working that out in my head, but we'll use relationship with food for now. And maybe I'll change my opinion later. But your relationship with food is important. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? It means, how do you view food? Are you serving food or is food serving you? Is food fuel to give you that energy to get to that goal in your life? Or is food a source of escapism and pleasure that you're running to when you want to drown the bad things that are happening in your life?
Honestly.
Okay?
So food is fuel for me for the most part, but I'm also not going to get on this podcast and say that sometimes I eat food because it tastes freaking good and I'm maybe about to start my period and I want some pizza, and that's food is, what was the second thing you said? Food is fuel or
and then food is escapism.
Escapism. Or maybe I'm just having one of those days and I want a bag of potato chips. And I have it, right? So I don't think that it's like an all or nothing. It's about what's the ratio in your life look like? Are you thinking of food as escapism 100% of the time? Then that's probably going to end up being a problem for you. Or is there some balance where, yes, food is fuel, but it's also okay that if I eat something that isn't necessarily the best fuel for my body, doesn't mean that you're not going to reach your goals.
Yeah, for sure. And I totally vibe with that. And I wanted to read just a quick excerpt out of Stop Starting Over, the book that I wrote, because it talks in reference to a lady named Melanie Warner who wrote the Pandora's Lunchbox. And it says, according to a study done by the radio program Marketplace, 70% of the American diet consists of processed food. So most people it's likely that stat points to most people are using it as escapism, not as means to, I think marginally reduce stress.
How does she define processed food?
I don't know. Let's keep going. Pandora's Lunchbox author Melanie Warner says that processed food revolution began over 100 years ago and has gradually continued to take over the American diet. Warner says that there are an estimated 5,000 different additives allowed to go into our food, but, the FDA doesn't actually know how many additives are going into our food. This is in part because regulations are not only self-regulatory, meaning the bodies that make the regulations are also the check and the balance to the regulation. So the food industry is doing the testing, but it's also voluntary. Mm-hmm. The ingredient companies don't actually have to tell the FDA about a new ingredient. If they so choose to, they can simply just launch it into the market. The FDA doesn't know about it and nobody else really knows about the ingredient. She says, the entire nutritional system is a mess, but you don't have to be a part of it. Just like everything else in life, it's your choice to practice outstanding nutritional habits. Wouldn't it be nice to no longer feel imprisoned by your food? So, and then we go on to say, let's dive into the psychology around nutrition and getting you to eat clean by default. Mm-hmm. So I think that's part of the knowledge, right? Is just to know that, if that escapism is leading to, I'm not saying maybe eliminate that out of your life, because I do that all the time. I think everybody does that to a certain degree, but it's like when you go there, okay, it's frequency. Mm-hmm. And you got to manage the frequency. And then it's what are you putting inside of your body when you're going there, mm-hmm. right? Because you can go there in a way that's like, not eating 14 bags of Skittles, a whole thing of Lifesaver gummies, and then, 3 shakes from, Chick-fil-A or whatever. You can do like with that true binge is where you just all regard for your health just goes out the window. And, eating that amount of food with those amount of toxic ingredients in it is a large driver of inflammation. Inflammation is a driver of disease. So I just thought that was an interesting part of this because it gives us, like, from a third party perspective, just how much garbage is in our food today and, what eating clean actually means.
Yeah.
En route to getting 100 grams of protein, how do you get it? Like, how do you get it cleanly? Because you could go get like protein bars that obviously have a bunch of garbage in them, which ours are the anti-garbage protein bars. How do you get your protein like from a clean, how do you source cleanly?
I pretty much always have a afterburn protein shake. And then you talked about kind of the meats that we have at the house. So grass-fed beef, I do lean turkey, I do eggs, I do chicken. We'll occasionally make steak. So all the things, all the clean ingredients of like your true protein sources. Does that help?
Yeah. So yes, perfect.
I don't do a lot of supplements, I guess. Like I'm pretty much one shake a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then not even every day I have an afterburn bar. So it's really about convenience, but also balancing it with real whole foods is important to me.
So do you feel like we need to build, let's say escapism with a positive connotation is a way for people to stay healthy, but then an amount of a frequency where they, let's say, are also able to fulfill their social needs and obligations and not feel like they got to be the mom at the baseball game who's eating chicken breast and boiled broccoli out of a, plastic bag, right? How are we building it in? Like you're building that sense of like escapism in, so you can, going back to the first question, you can anticipate the future, and on Friday or Saturday or Sunday next week I have this thing, and I need to manage my time appropriately.
I think that boils down back to like that planning that I talked about, and that core like staple in my week is knowing what does my week look like, what meals do I need to prepare for, and then I'm a creature of routine, so I do eat very healthy for the most part, but I also know I'm going to have times where I'm going out to dinner or, we're going to a social event and we're going to drink, but I don't drink during the week. It's typically reserved for the special times.
Right. So,
and I'm good with that. Like that's what balance means for me. Could be different for somebody else.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat subjective, but also I gave a good rule in the book. It's called the 12-hour rule. Mm-hmm. And I personally use this sometimes, not all the time. Like I said, it's a tool, right? You have all these tools in your tool belt that at different moments in time, depending on where you're at and what your goals are. Sometimes I even have the tool of, hey, I need to sprint for 8 weeks because I am to the point now where personally in my fitness journey, my body image doesn't necessarily affect my mental or emotional state, but that's been a long time coming, and it's a long time coming for a lot of people. And I think once you get to that mature state of fitness and that mature state mentally and emotionally, that you're able then to probably do some more like, bound by time type things, like a 30-day sprint, because you want to see like, hey, I'm feeling good mentally, I'm feeling good emotionally, my body's good, I want to challenge, like let me give myself a reason to kick the intensity up in the gym a little bit, because I don't have the danger of completely throwing my hands up in the air after that and going backwards and hardcore in the opposite way. And so I think that's important. And the rendition of that on like a weekly basis is this rule. It's the 12-hour rule. And it says that if you just took 12 hours out of your week, right, and you took 12 consecutive hours out of your week, maybe that be a Friday night into a Saturday morning or something like that, or an all-day Saturday thing, and you were able to what I call modify a healthy diet. That's not necessarily cheating or blowing it out or I'm going to go crazy this weekend, because once the calories go into your body, they're going to stay there, right? Like if you put 10,000 calories into your body in a day because you just binge all day long, well, it's going to stay there and it's going to negate, progress for you. And you're going to have a tough time if you are motivated by that type of physical progress. And if you're just motivated by the mental, emotional progress and it doesn't affect you whether you're losing body fat or not, then by all means, this rule isn't for you. It's just it's a tool in your tool belt to say, here's how I regulate my body. Here's how I regulate the composition that I have, in finding that optimal place where my muscle mass and my body fat are in a place where I feel my best, right? We've tried to do the whole like get to like 8% body fat.
Yeah.
I don't feel my best at 8% body fat.
Yeah.
I feel terrible. Like I know you talked about you losing your period and you losing like
it wasn't sustainable
motivation. Like we lost you lose a lot of stuff when you get that low because you're not cognitively clear. So the 12-hour rule, 12 hours consistently, right? You can't go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like it can't be the weekend because the weekend's 42.8% of your week if you took all 3 of those days. You know, you're not going to do great things if you're only executing half the time. So that 12 hours reduces that time where you modify a healthy diet down to like 85% of your week is you know, good, and you're focused and you're on it and you're anticipating that time. That's why people call it a reward or a cheat day, is because like you get to anticipate that time and it feels a little good when you get there, but it doesn't feel good when you get there if you haven't executed throughout the week. So the 12-hour rule, you guys, just another way to keep yourself on track.
So you're giving yourself 12 hours to kind of go off the normal. Right?
Yeah.
So a dinner and a breakfast, or a day, you know, where you're a date day or whatever.
We just went to First Watch, our favorite day breakfast spot, and got a whole mess of chocolate chip pancakes. I love them.
But then you didn't eat bad for the rest of the 12 hours. So how does the 12 hours work?
Well, within 12 hours, that's all I needed. Okay. I just needed my little fix of pancakes with my kids, and you know, us sharing pancakes together, and we bond over that. Like, it's cool.
But
and
you're not doing that every day, or even every week.
No. Because I want to make sure that I that food continues to serve me, that I'm not serving food, that I am not imprisoned by this feeling that I need food, that it has me, it's got a hold of me. There's this sense of not being in control when you feel like I have to have these things. If you choose to eat food that might be considered junk food, well, then you need to know the health implications of that, but you also need to, you know, be able to own that as something that's a habit you're okay with, that's not torturing you mentally or an emotion or from an emotional set.
I think to flip that too, something that was a breakthrough for me is not letting food control you in the sense that you can't have something. That used to be a big thing. Of restriction is a very real thing, and that was probably my biggest problem. I restricted so many things. And so you talk about food not imprisoning you, but I also think you could flip that and say, give yourself permission to eat the foods you want to eat, right? Not obviously it has to be balanced, like you just said, but there's something about your mindset when you're telling yourself that you can't have something. I think it makes you want it more, because you're telling yourself you can't have it, and then you binge on it, right? Because you try to like push off that craving, and then finally you cave,
right?
And your mindset dips, and you're like,
I'm going all in.
You eat the whole pizza instead of you could have just had one piece, you know, 3 days ago when you had that craving. Right. So I think there's like, that goes both ways. Don't also let food imprison you to the fact that you feel like you have to completely cut out categories of food or restrict yourself to something because of a rule you have, when in reality, hey, maybe just have that slice of pizza on a Wednesday and get back at it. You know, it's not going to completely
As soon as you started talking about that and you said the word permission, I'm like, yep, that's it. It's permission, but then it's also versus discipline. So if you have to have the permission and give yourself the permission, but then the discipline to make sure that permission is in alignment with the goals that you set, right?
Yeah.
And that's just
because you can't go crazy and be like, oh, I have permission to eat whatever I want. Well, okay, that's not what we're saying.
Right.
But it's just that mindset of saying, okay, if my body's really craving something, let me dig into that a little bit more, or find a healthier version of it too, you know?
So one small win is 100 grams of protein. Let's talk about this cycle of lasting change, the cycle of how we help people at Burn Boot Camp in our focus meetings implement one tiny small change, and how we encourage them to let that grow. We talked about protein. You know, somebody that's struggling to get to 100 grams, let's say, because we obviously know that when we sit down with people, they're like, 100 grams of protein, how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about, maybe you can start with the importance for somebody that's net new to wanting to discover nutrition and educate themselves is talk about the importance and the philosophy that we have around logging.
Yeah. So you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's one of the things I would look at first and foremost is I would say, okay, well, what are you eating? If you're first going to tell me that 100 grams isn't possible for you, let's look at what you are eating. And the only way to do that is through logging your food. So I would sit down with a member, and that first meeting, we would 3 to 5 days, I would say, log everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. Don't hide anything from me. I just want to see what you're eating. Then we'd come back to that focus meeting and I'd take a look and kind of see where their calories were at, see where their protein is at. A lot of the time, you guys, I saw not enough calories actually. So whether they were being honest with me or not, a lot of the time I see under eating, and that's going to hurt you as well. And then of course, not enough protein, like 50 grams of protein, 70 grams of protein. So from there, I'm going to find ways to maybe incorporate protein into what they're currently eating or increase their portion sizes, right? If they are already eating protein, how can we increase the portion size? And then just talk through what are those tips and tricks? Where do you feel like you are struggling the most? Is it breakfast? Is it lunch? Is it dinner? And then give them solutions. And sometimes that solution is a protein shake, right? If they're kind of already doing those things for their main meals, you don't want to eat, a ton of chicken all the time. I get that. So how can we kind of break it up and give different options? So that would be my approach if I sat down with somebody.
42 grams in a 6-ounce chicken breast. And then you have 23 in an afterburn shake. Let's say you get another 20 from your breakfast and you eat eggs. Okay. Now we're already at 80 grams. And you have an afterburn bar. Now you're at 100, almost at 100 grams. And that right there is the lineup. If you wanted to remove a supplement, you could also add maybe some elk, some bison. You could add 4 ounces of that. And now you're right there. You could also, you could also add plant protein if you wanted to shy away from carnivorous foods. If you want to stay in the plant lane, I have no shame in any of the games. It's all about protein, and yeah, there's different quality of protein, and it can range arguably from higher quality to lower quality. It's subjective for the most part. Again, in alignment with whatever that person wants to push, or it might be overstated. 100 grams of protein is 100 grams of protein. How about we just settle that? And not have a war over what type of protein you should eat. Let's just get it first, right? And then you can go optimize and maximize your types from there if you so feel like it. But 100 grams of protein is that, right? It's just it's understanding, like Morgan has said, understanding your nutrition by looking at the log, and then through that, what do you recommend? We recommend 3 to 30 days.
Of logging?
Really really understand it to the point where you can now look at something let's say you can look at a plate of eggs and you can be like, that's about 30 or 40 grams right there.
Listen, logging is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
It really just depends on what your relationship and mindset is of it. I took it to an extreme. So I had a bad experience per se with logging, and that's why I don't do it anymore. But that's only me as an individual. I know a lot of people that I love dearly that do still log every single day, and I support that because that's the tool that works best for them, and they don't have a poor relationship with logging their food. So if you find that logging is something that's truly helping to keep you accountable and helping you understand your body more and how you're feeling in connection to what you're eating, then I support logging your food. I support everybody logging their food for those first 30 days because you don't know what you don't know. And you'll be surprised at where you land. If you're someone that's a routine eater and you're able to get everything in that actual log, you'll probably surprise yourself either how much you're overeating, undereating, or not getting enough of those good macronutrients into your body. And
then it's from there, spot. You might do it again every year.
Yeah.
Right.
I honestly
for a period of time. We should do it. We haven't done it in a while. We use the Lose It app, everyone.
Yeah.
The Lose It app is a good app. MyFitnessPal is another good app.
Yeah.
And it basically pulls from the same database of food and does all of the calculations for you.
Yeah. Because I even told you the other day, I was like, I feel like I'm eating good. I'm working out, but I'm just not not losing like my belly fat that I want to lose. So you're like, you need to log your food. So I just need to do that and just see, maybe I'm not eating enough, you know? I mean, that's quite possible for me. I don't do it intentionally, but sometimes I'm busy and probably in a 24-hour day, sometimes I don't get enough calories for what I burn.
And so the cycle of lasting change says 100 grams of protein is a must. You have to get that in your, I mean, that is how we continue to build our frame, build our muscle, build our structure. And as you build more muscle, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate goes up because your body's going to require you to burn more energy. And so therefore, in the long run, the cleaner you eat now, the more you can relax later, if that's any motivation for anybody. But regardless, we stay on 100 grams of protein. We're not going to just give you the knowledge and then you think knowledge is power, but really it's the absence of execution is going to leave you in the same place. So we are at Burn, one small win in the cycle of lasting change means we are forcing you to execute before we move to the next small win. So we're going to get you to 100 grams of protein. We're going to build that habit, and then we're going to build rituals around that habit so you never have to worry about it again. And it becomes a default for who you are and what you do and how you move through nutrition. And then, then you might log after that again. You might say, okay, what's the log for 3 days? Okay, so what's the next gap? Let's talk about hydration, right? The next one small win, another small win is hydration. We say at least 0.5 ounces of
half
water of half your body weight.
Yeah, half your body weight in ounces.
Half your body weight in ounces.
That's an easier way to think about it.
Yeah, half your body weight in ounces. Which, by the way, can speed your metabolism. If you are dehydrated, it potentially could speed your metabolism up by up to 30%, some studies show. So I know that...
Also, a lot of people get hunger and hydration confused, right?
Yeah, you're so right.
So
Talk about that.
If you're dehydrated, a lot of the times that's going to show up in feeling hungry and feeling like you're not satisfied, when in reality, you just need to drink some more water. So... hey, it doesn't always work out that way. It doesn't always stop your hunger, but and look, now you're drinking water. You're reminding yourself to get your ounces in.
Defines fuel.
Yes. And we believe, I know this is kind of a next step, but we also believe in quality water.
We do.
But that's not necessarily where you need to start today. Start today with just getting the quantity in. Right. Which is half your body weight in ounces. So.
Okay. Some other small wins that we have, Morg.
I don't skip meals. That's one of my bigger things too, is don't skip meals.
So your body, for you, it's like you're all breakfast every day, all the time. You need that to thrive.
I am. So intermittent fasting has never been something that really would work for me, because I need breakfast, lunch, and dinner for two reasons. One, you don't want to know Morgan when she's hungry. You know what I mean?
Oh, I do.
So
I know Morgan when she's hungry. That's where No Mercy Morgan comes from. She trained one camp when she was hungry one time, and those members, I think, are still laying on the ground 6 years later.
I just I don't do well without eating food. But also then I just feel like I make bad habits when I'm hungry and when I've skipped a meal, and I'll overeat. And so I just have recognized that. So I'm somebody that really tries to plan out a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm not a huge snacker. So I will say that. I'm not at every 3 hour I eat, it's really breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me.
Yeah. I feel like you just eat really when you're hungry. Yeah. You get hungry and you're like, okay, you're very disciplined, by the way.
For the most part.
You're very disciplined. You don't eat I'm not very disciplined. I'll get up and eat multiple Lara bars in the middle of the night. Our kids have all these we buy them healthy organic snacks and stuff. Morgan, you know those Nature's Bakery?
The fig bars?
The fig bars?
Yeah.
Oh my God, the blueberry ones?
Yeah.
Those are incredible. And a little bit of some of those with some almond milk.
They're not unhealthy. You just have
those
how
little
many of them?
Those little nutritionally dense squares. They pack about 210 calories in one pack, and I'm eating 4.
Oh my God, you guys! I need to find a lock for our pantry. If anyone has recommendations, shoot them over to me, because I really do need it for Devin. It brings it. Go ahead.
So
here's what he on multiple occasions has ate the kids' candy or dessert or their treat that they were looking forward to the next day. And oh man, your little daughter, Cameron, she gets so angry at you.
Yeah, she does.
You know what she said to me the other day?
What'd she say?
Well, apparently you guys had some sort of like a Bricks pizza that was like a dessert.
We did. We ordered cheese pizza and then a chocolate pizza for dessert when you were gone.
It was a mom's night out. So you did that with the kids. And so the next day she was looking forward to seeing that piece of chocolate pizza or whatever it was. Well, Daddy ate it. And she was so mad. And she was like, but he told me that he wants a 12-pack. Why is he eating this? And I was like, oh my gosh. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, I think you heard that later in the day.
I did. Yeah, she FaceTimed me yelling at me, and I was like, baby girl, I understand that you're upset. Just please do not talk to daddy this way. This is a learning lesson. And just to be fair, I promised her that she could take 2 pieces of cheese pizza to school.
So she confused the cheese
and
pizza.
And that the chocolate pizza was daddy's pizza because I needed it.
Well, needless to say, thank you for complimenting my discipline.
It's good. It's very good.
You just got to tackle this midnight snacking that you have.
Yeah, I'm there.
So.
I feel like I'm in a pocket right now where I can still have a couple things. Okay, it brings me to my next point. So removal of temptation, the oldest trick in the book, still works today, right?
Yeah.
Like don't like get rid of these traditional ways that have worked for a lot of people just because we're moving forward in time and we're stacking on more tools. You still got the hammer still works. When was the hammer invented? A long time ago.
I have no idea.
Still works.
Yeah.
Just as good. We got power tools that work better in a sense, but this thing right here, this bar, here's what I need from our family.
Yeah, but you can't have 4 of those.
No. But
even if it's healthy.
No, but if I ate one of these, 2 of these even, 260 calories.
Yeah.
And I fast all day, and then I have like protein and rice 3 times within 3 hours, usually. We'll throw in whatever, modify our healthy diet, 12-hour rule, 85% of the time I'm doing that.
So you're telling me to order a case of afterburn bars?
Yes, and if I feel like if I ate these, that the macronutrient content would be more conducive to my goals, but
fig bars.
Yeah, because they don't have protein.
All right, we'll test the theory, guys.
We'll test the theory.
I'll buy a case of afterburn bars for the house. We'll see if you snack on it.
Well, my question is, why don't we have? We're off and on with our own bars, and I don't get it. We need to have these stacked up. We have in our house. We have.
We're stacked on all the other supplements.
We have grass-fed whey protein for days, and I'm not running out of smoothies. But
we were out of stock.
Yeah, we were. But now we're back in stock. Triple chocolate with almond butter is that jam, and you got to get you one.
All right, so
remove temptation.
Temptation.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, so you love necessarily you don't like the way you feel after you eat a whole box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, so maybe you shouldn't keep it in your house.
Yeah.
When you are going to the grocery store and you walk into Harris Teeter and you walk by every time you go past the donut section and you grab a donut out because you walk by the donut section, maybe you should stop walking by the donut section. Mm-hmm. And when you take that route on the way home and you're used to stopping at that same fast food place because you have your routine and we're habitual and we have rituals, and those rituals drive our experiences of life, and our experiences drive our behaviors, and our behaviors often drive the inner narrative. So if your experience is you go by the same Chick-fil-A every day, you're going to gravitate toward it. If you're used to stopping, you're going to be likely to stop even though you don't want to.
Yeah,
you're like, I'm not going to go. I'm going. And you turn right. We've all had that experience before. So remove the temptation by anticipating a different route home, by removing those things out of your path. And what ends up happening is it's a form of pattern interruption. So it's psychological. You get rid of the visual, and the visual doesn't trigger the thought, and the thought doesn't occur. You're less likely to think about eating it. Mm-hmm. And so pattern interruption is a great way for you to break your unhealthy patterns. When I was first getting started trying to help people in focus meetings, there'd be a lot of things that I couldn't help them with, and a lot of them were nutrition. And I couldn't understand why people weren't gravitating toward these nomenclatures that are popular today, abs are made in the gym. Well, you want abs, abs are made in the kitchen, not the gym. Well, you want abs, and why aren't you making them in the kitchen? Well, I couldn't help people because all I had were tools or phrases or sayings that I heard from other people that were, those common things that I fell off the wagon. Oh, really? What wagon? I don't see a wagon. Because if you have a metaphorical wagon, then there's always something to fall off, which means there's always something to get back on. Kill your wagon. Stop telling yourself that there's this wagon. Like if I am, if I am, let's say how some people language, you even hear people say this. I know it sounds offensive and I'm not talking about anybody, but they say, I'm a fat slob. And they'll say that right to me. I'm like, no, you're not. Like I had a gentleman sitting next to me on the plane who's very highly successful health business consultant and for hospitals. And he was, he was just, a former college athlete, played football at Jacksonville State. Now I'm just a fat slob. Now I'm just, this pig and I just eat everything in sight. It's like, dude, you got to break that pattern, right? This pattern of you defining who you are as this person who does these things you're conditioning yourself that you are, people like you do things like this. So if you're a fat pig, then of course you're going to go eat like a pig does. And so it's like, I'm not a fat pig. I may have habits that I need to get rid of or abolish that lead me to feeling that way, but that doesn't define who I am. One thing we found out is you will absolutely 100% of the time, your behaviors will be exactly in alignment with the identity that you have for yourself. Tony Robbins says this very well. He says the strongest force in the human psychology is the need to be consistent with how you identify yourself. So you are what you say you are, in a sense. And more importantly, you are what you think you are. You are what you think about most often. And so when we were first getting started, I was having these people sit down in focus meetings. I couldn't help them with the, it is what it is type pieces of advice, or, don't eat that, eat this, like surface level. I had to study what's called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And what this basically says is teach people to break their patterns, teach them to interrupt themselves. If they're going to go sit on the couch and eat Cheetos and drink a gallon of Mountain Dew, well then instead of like teaching them not to do that, maybe you have them before they do that, leave that option on the table. Like you said, we don't want to pull options away. We want to open options up. Don't tell them not to do that. Just have them go walk around their house 5 times and listen to to the one song that puts them in the best state of mind over and over and over and over and over. Eat 15 grapes. And then if they still feel like sitting on the couch, eating Cheetos and drinking a gallon of Mountain Dew, do it. But don't do it without putting forth some type of effort, right? Or some type of discipline. Give yourself the permission to still eat the Cheetos and drink the Mountain Dew, but don't do that without the discipline, like we talked about, of walking around the house 5 times and jamming your tunes, It's going to interrupt your pattern. It's going to give you a chance to slow the game down a little bit and actually think about the decision that you're about to make. It'll give you some time to do that. Is there any way that you ever had interrupted your own patterns, or any way that you've helped members like just break those old habits?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just said, when you're having a craving, eat something. Just eat something, because it's most likely you're hungry. And so eat something in the kitchen that's healthy. And then if you still want that craving, listen to it. I don't have anything new. Okay, good. Last, we're going to wrap up here, but I want to hit 2 things. Let's talk about when we're on vacation, because people are often on vacation, and what happens is they go ham for 1 week straight, and it just wipes out, weeks and weeks or months and months of good progress, because they kind of give themselves that permission and don't balance that with the discipline. So we talked about some travel rules. What's your vacation rules? Do you have rules on vacation? Like I've never actually asked you this question before, so I'm curious, like, what's your approach? We're going to Naples next month, right? For 6 days? Yeah. We're going to be living out of a hotel for 6 days. Yep. What are we going to do? I don't have rules, but I know that if I eat every meal that has fried food or just not good for me, I'm not going to feel good. So again, I connect, how is this food going to make me feel? And so I definitely let myself treat myself a lot more on vacation, but I don't blow it out of the water because I know I'll feel like crap. And so there's where we're going specifically as great restaurants, great fish, you know what I mean? So like I look forward to eating that kind of food that's still healthy for me. For sure. 1/3 rule. That's me. 1 out of every 3 meals when I'm on vacation. I would say that's kind of how I am too. About the same. Yeah. I don't necessarily like think about it as a rule, but I would say that's my pattern is like one meal a day, maybe where I'm doing, or one thing a day that's like a treat because I'm on vacation. And I wouldn't normally pick this, but I'm going to because I'm on vacation.
Right.
Ice cream with the kids, maybe one day, you know, but I balance it still.
In my book, I said, don't sell your home, meaning that if you're going to go on vacation to the Bahamas for the week, you're not going to like sell your home just because you're going on vacation to the Bahamas. You're coming back to your home. So don't abandon ship, you know, completely when you're getting out there. And I think that's about it, Morgan. You know, we have a whole nutrition section in the book that I've authored it and we wrote it. We're writing a new one right now. Morgan and I are co-authoring it. It's tentatively titled, but we're going to have a lot of nutrition, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today crystallized for that project. And we're excited to bring that to you. So if you haven't read Stop Starting Over, it's the predecessor to the book that Morgan and I are co-authoring. And it's right here, Stop Starting Over. So, shameless plug here on the podcast today, but this has just helped so many people. When you and I have both been asked to sign you because you influenced this book so greatly. A lot of the strategies that are in here were driven by your desire to make our family healthy, especially in chapter 9, the nutrition chapter. Yep.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that, and really driving this. You know, I'm an all in, all out person. So I would be, if I wrote a book without your input, it'd probably be like these hardcore, stringent, rigid rules, because that's how I am. But you've created this practical philosophy that we now share, and it just works so much better. So summarize it, one win at a time. You know, make sure that you aren't pressuring yourself to do one thing 100% of the time, or, you know, that if you decide to modify, a healthy diet, that, that is in your plan, that you're anticipating ahead of time, that you know the road ahead, that you're generally speaking, not trying to make any changes that you don't intend or plan on keeping forever. And, that you use some pattern interruption when you are having a hard time breaking some habits. And what do you replace those bad habits with? Our life experience is driven by the habits and the rituals that we possess as human beings. And nutrition is just one of the many things that we need to continue to work on, and we'll never stop working on it. There is no goal line with nutrition. There is no end game. It is not a destination. We're not stopping the ship at the ports on the way, to the final destination. It's a continuous battle for maximizing the amount of energy that you can possess inside of your being, inside of yourself, because only then, if you prioritize yourself as number one, only then are you going to be able to prioritize your children, your family, your business, your community. And we both believe deeply in that you should be prioritizing yourself over everyone else in your life. As selfish as that might seem, the byproduct of you having that energy is going to be, you're going to be able to give that and transfer that to everyone else that you care about in your life. Any parting words, Mork?
I would say that you're never too far gone, right? Your body is constantly, you're making new cells, right? Like you're constantly able to make changes in your life. So just because you maybe have 100 pounds to lose, don't feel like you're too far gone, right? Like I think there's that expression of just because one tire is flat doesn't mean like, I don't know, all 4 of them are, right?
Should burn the car, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I guess if you're listening to this and you still feel like it's too much for you, there's always time for you to change your life, change the energy that you feel, learn about food, learn about how food affects your body and how it makes you feel. So just a little bit of words of encouragement.
And if you're a member, get that focus meeting, because we teach our trainers exactly this philosophy, this cycle of lasting change, one win at a time. They're going to walk you hand in hand right through it. And so if you're a member and you have not gotten yourself into a cadence and a routine for accountability, that's really what our focus meetings are. Schedule one every month. That's going to be your source of anticipation. If you're listening and you're not a member yet, well, then come join us for 7 days. We'll treat you like a member. We'll teach you everything that we know in those 7 days, even if you decide not to join, because our job is to help create confidence in you. And knowledge is one of those empowering things that if you get it, Now you know what to do, and then it's on you and in your trainer to help execute one day at a time, one small step at a time. Don't try to climb the mountain in one day or swallow the whale whole. Bite off one piece at a time. Take one step up the mountain at a time. And subscribe to the podcast because, we're having fun. We're on fire. We're going to start doing some interviews and with our friends like we mentioned. So stay tuned. Thank you guys. Morgan, take us out.
All right. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.